Cool. So welcome everyone to Metagov seminar on Wednesday, March 18th. And today we have Johann Diedrick here from the Mozilla Data Collective. He is a staff engineer and data scientist there. He's also an adjunct professor at NYU's ITP program, where he teaches courses on sound art and listening machines, and lots of other incredible stuff. Johann, your CV is just so awesome. So I'll send it in chat so people can check out all more of what you're working on, but today you'll be sharing with us your work on Mozilla Data Collective. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get into it. I'll pass to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Val, for the invitation and introduction, and thank you all for being here. Really happy to be presenting about the Mozilla Data Collective to you all. So yeah, just thank you for being here. So again, my name is Johann Diedrick. I'm a staff research engineer at the Mozilla Data Collective, and I've been working at the Data Collective since August of last year, when we first launched the platform. And just really excited to share with you all what we're doing at the Data Collective, sort of our mission, our values, our vision, and kind of take you through what we've been up to and what we have looking forward to. So I'm going to start to share my screen and then start a presentation. Just give me one moment. Stop one. All right. Can I get a vocal confirmation that you can see my screen? I can't see any of the videos
Yep,
anymore.
all
Awesome.
good.
Great. So, yes, I'm here representing the Mozilla Data Collective, where we allow people to create, curate, and control their data sets. So for the agenda for this talk, I'm going to introduce the Mozilla Data Collective, talk about the problems that we are addressing with the platform, how MDC works, and then leave ample time for Q&A and discussions about what we're doing with the platform. So to begin, I'm going to introduce the Mozilla Data Collective. And at a glance, the Mozilla Data Collective is responding to an industry that relies on extractive practices um, around the data ecosystem and data economy as it relates to AI development. And at the Mozilla Data Collective, we are rebuilding the AI data ecosystem with communities as its center. And this has been something that Mozilla has been doing for quite a while with open data sets and community contributed data sets and donation-based data sets. The Mozilla Data Collective comes out of a current initiative called Common Voice, which is one of the largest open data sets for speech data that you can find online. We have hundreds of languages, thousands of hours of data, and from the work that we did with Common Voice and working with communities, a lot of that has kind of built momentum into what we're building now with the Mozilla Data Collective. With the platform, we enable communities, organizations, individuals, government bodies, NGOs, SMEs, GLAMs, all sorts of different types of organizations to both control how their data feeds into AI and control how they benefit from it. And so with that, there are these two core ideas that I think the platform is really addressing. The first is around data agency, and the second is around fair value exchange. And we'll talk a little bit about both of those, but those are the two core things I want you all to keep in mind when thinking about the platform, both around data agency, which for us technically speaks to conditional access around data sets, and then fair value exchange, which can be monetization of data sets, but we also are thinking more expansively about what does fair value exchange mean for different kinds of organizations and different kinds of individuals. So the problem that we are addressing with the platform, there are many. Data for AI is fraught with many different kinds of problems. The first is that the data that people are using to train AI systems is coming from a poisoned well. Everyone is pulling from the same low quality sources from the public internet. And so we have a number of, instances of large frontier labs reaching the limits of what they can pull out from this public low quality data sources that they're using to train data. And we see that as potentially a problem for many different kinds of actors within this ecosystem. There's also the problem of poor representation. These sources exclude billions of people that are unrepresented by internet data. I could talk a lot about different kinds of biases that come out of poor representation in data sets. My work before working at the Mozilla Data Collective was around understanding racial bias in speech data sets. And then it led to kind of learning and understanding more about algorithmic bias that happens with speech recognition systems writ large. But ultimately, just to say that there's already kind of poor representation inside of these data sets, and this is a problem that needs to be resolved. There's also the bulldozing of rights that these extractive practices go around the rights of individuals and communities and organizations where different actors within this ecosystem are finding ways to circumvent um, terms and conditions and different kind of licensings around um, resourcing data sets or producing data sets. Um, the output of these systems are also producing false information, which can be harmful to people. And we just see that this is the rights involved in producing and hosting your data sets online have are insufficiently addressed with the current ecosystem that we have. And then um, last but not least, and certainly not exhaustive for all the different problems that are occurring with data for AI, are the narrow benefits, where the resulting products and services that are produced by the data that is then trained to you to create these systems don't serve the diverse needs of people around the world. And so we can think of a lot of different examples of the different biases that come out of these systems and what they produce. And sort of this race to the bottom by big tech companies to buy training AI data that only seems to really serve a small slice of people and definitely has um, negative effects and impacts for other folks. So who bears the cost of these problems for data in the current AI ecosystem? So for data providers or data producers, as we call them, for these people who may want to open up their data sets, um, they bear the cost as far as increasing the lifetime undiscoverability and value of impact of their data sets by choosing to opt out of the data ecosystem. It decreases the availability and discoverability of their data sets, which can impact downstream effects of how these systems operate. Creatives, media orgs, and other SMEs that could generate revenue and benefits from their data are also deciding to opt out from having their data sets available on the open web. And governments, funders, and public knowledge orgs that would want to have their data more openly available in a more transparent way are locking their data down as ways to, so get away from people from extractively scraping their data. Um, so all of these data providers are wary of this free-for-all exploitation that comes with just hosting their data freely online. For data consumers who desire access to affordable and high-quality contextualized data sets, some of these folks, including model trainers and data engineers, they want affordable, right-sized, high-quality data sets. The tech organizations deploying these models want access to the communities behind their data sets for questions and requests. A lot of the times there are these open data sets online, but no one is really too sure who produced it, under what conditions were they made, under what uses should we move forward with using these data sets, et cetera. And then for companies that are looking to understand the compliance around using these data sets, they want to de-risk the usage of these data sets by understanding the context, intent, and supply chain from it. But they're frustrated wasting time trying to figure out where these data sets have come from, who's produced them, and a lot of money is spent with trash in and trash out. So how does the Mozilla Data Collective work? We are a platform that unlocks data abundance by giving people and communities control. And so our theory is that if we produce a platform that allows both data agency, which comes to conditional access, and also fair value exchange, which allows people to reap the benefits of the data that they produce, this will create a more healthy and vibrant AI data system. So we envision a healthy and vibrant AI data ecosystem wherein high value and high quality data sets are available. On our platform, data producers share vetted, context appropriate data, and data consumers can access data for key public interest use cases. Currently, we allow people to create accounts for the Mozilla Data Collective, but to become an uploader, we do go through a somewhat manual approval process, which at some point will, open up and be a bit more loose about, but we're really currently focused on hosting high value and high quality data sets, and making sure that they go through a somewhat curated and vetted process before those data sets are available on the platform. We also want to make sure that we have as much representative and equitable data sets on the platform. The sources and the data sets that we have really do encompass a vast diversity of people where the data sets are being shared on their terms and in line with their values. So when you are a data producer or data uploader, you're able to determine and say what license that this data set is going to be under. You can also determine custom terms of services and restrictions for the data set. You can designate different kind of forbidden use cases or how this data set should be used, how it should not be used. And we also have different kinds of access controls around data sets. So if you want to just specify that a certain individual or a certain organization can have access to downloading your data, we make that available as a feature on the platform. Um, on our platform, we also are consent centered. So again, access conditions are controlled by the data producers who retain full ownership of their data. This is a really important thing for us and is really driving a lot of the features that we're developing for the platform that data producers get to sort of say and determine how they want their data to be used or how they want their data to be accessed. We don't prescribe how any of that is. Currently, most of our data sets are open access or CC0. But as we start to roll out more and more features, we'll be kind of dialing in what those consent and access control policies look like, informed by the data producers on our platform. And we also just carry this value of being anti-monopoly, and that as more data consumers can access the valuable data to build products and services that really serve the needs of people worldwide. So this is definitely a conscious choice that we make as the Mozilla Data Collective around the kinds of data sets that we are trying to value and platform and bring on to the platform. So who is the Mozilla Data Collective platform for? We say it's for any community groups, which, we have an exhaustive list, but research institutions, nonprofits, companies of any size, news or media organizations, civic society groups, governmental agencies, cultural heritage institutions. This can be, as formal as, yeah, like an NGO or, as a uh, some kind of museum institution around the world, or it can just be like a small collective of people. And we have data sets on the platform that kind of run the gamut from kind of big capital O organizations to small grassroots communities that are making bespoke data sets that they want to have hosted on our platform. Um, Hosting data on the MDC platform is free. we store, host, and allow people to access and then share your data under clear and robust terms. Um, any benefits and or revenue that gets generated from people who want to download your data set and you've determined that you want them to pay for it goes 100% back to you and your community. We do take a small platform fee, which is sort of how we generate revenue, but that is on top of whatever fee that you determine you want for your data set. By providing public data sets, we're really hoping to unlock local AI innovation, and we have a bunch of tooling around making it easy for people to use our data sets, including a Python library for easy access, easy download, easy integration with your whatever your current tooling is for building, ML or AI models, or just doing, simple data science. Um, you'll have access to accurate information for training or fine-tuning models. We are developing sort of a somewhat universal metadata schema that will allow you to easily understand how to use the data sets for any kind of work that you might have in your pipeline. And I think really importantly is this way to connect back with the communities behind the data sets for additional questions and requests. I think a big thing that people are concerned about is not really understanding the provenance of the data sets that they're working with. And so for folks who upload the data sets and want to make their contact available, or even just embed within their data set files more information on how they can learn more about the communities that are producing the data sets, we make space for that. And again, just de-risking the usage of data sets by understanding its context, intent, and supply chain. So if any of that sounds exciting, we think that the Mozilla Data Collective is for you. So how does it work? So for data providers, you're able to upload and list your data with robust and trustworthy data sheets. So we take this idea of data sheets for data sets seriously, and all, if not most, of the data sets come up with data sheets, which again kind of describe more than just from a metadata perspective, just sort of the context of what's inside this data set, who produced it, what is its intended use, what's sort of the forbidden use. You can select storage preference, including sovereignty options, as in like where is this data being hosted, for how long, and also these different kind of access controls around who should be allowed to download your data sets. We share you can, we have different features in place that allow you to share this data in line with your values and needs. So you can use existing licenses, or you can custom build a license. You can choose to share with specific type of downloaders or specific kinds of organizations, and or request community compensation in the form of money, of course, but also attribution, citation, and various other forms of recognition. And then you can govern this data as an individual, organization, a trust, or cooperative, however it makes sense for your organization or entity. We have the capacity for that. As data consumers, you're able to access the data sets through, very robust discoverability tools, and curated library of data sets with clear data sheets. The benefit of this is that you get this transparent data supply chain and data usage preference signals. So we're able to kind of understand the provenance of the data sets, where it came from, and how many people are using it. We also have an API, which you can use just sort of our REST endpoints, but also our Python library to download the data sets as well. And then making it easily available for you to connect with the communities behind the data sets for questions and requests, ultimately allowing folks to build AI products and services with accurate and high quality data. So just want to invite you all to check us out at datacollective.mozillafoundation.org. You can go to the link or use this QR code, which should work. We're moving fast. There's a lot of features that are kind of being rolled out every day, and I think just going to the website is probably the first place to go to kind of see how to use the platform. You can kind of go and explore and discover data sets. You can sign up to create an account to download data sets that are available for you. And then if you're a data uploader or data producer, you can start to request to become an uploader so that you can upload your own data sets to the platform. So I think that's about 20 minutes of time. So I think we can go to Q&A. I'm gonna stop sharing and we can go to that. But yeah, just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening. And yeah, looking forward to a lively discussion.
Awesome. Thank you, Johann. Yeah, we have some questions popping up in chat, starting with Steve. You had a couple. Maybe you can combine them or
Yeah, well, I mean, the most important one is, what do you think of the Swiss approach, the Apertus approach, and also how are you extending your efforts into Europe generally, I guess? Um, yeah.
Yeah, good question. So we are currently incorporated within the Mozilla Foundation, which is US based, but we are soon to be based out of the UK, and we'll have to kind of adopt different kinds of laws and regulations with respect to how we're hosting and stewarding the data sets that we have. Um, to be quite honest, I'm not super familiar with the Swiss apparatus and their approach right now. So, do you mind sharing a little bit more about it and how that might relate to what we're doing?
I mean, is there anyone else here who knows more about it than me? I don't know that much.
Okay.
Yeah, just look into it. And essentially, they try to, uh, do a much more gracious way of collecting their data and interacting with the
Mhm.
people who provide that data, and in order to create a debiased model.
Sure, certainly. Yeah, I mean, from at a high level, that sounds pretty yeah, in line with what we're doing. We're not explicitly making models or doing kind of AI training at the moment, but we are producing tutorials and kind of showing people how they can use data hosted on the platform for building their own technologies.
Yeah, in other words, they might love you, they might be the perfect, client for you.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I'm very unfamiliar with them, so I'll definitely take it back to the team.
Yeah, okay. I'm also probably going to be working with Mozilla AI, so we may
Okay.
run into each other again. All right.
Yeah, wonderful. Sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, and for another sentence of context, the public AI network is, started by some Metagov research directors. So the public AI, they have their own Slack community, but they've been doing that work on working with the Swiss government and building out now a cooperative that is going to be the owner, I think, from what I understand, of the data underlying the models that are built, the Apertus models. So, yeah, I can send you more information, Johan, too. But that's an easy connect if you see it and
Yeah,
you're like, I want to connect to the folks working on that. Like Josh Tan is definitely accessible. He's a
awesome.
research director at Metagov and also public AI. So, yeah, cool. Let's see, Coraline, you had a question about
Yeah, I have a
licensing.
question about licensing.
Yeah.
How would you enforce a CCNC license when you have data sets that are available to private corporations? And also, are there any restrictions on the kinds of licenses that are acceptable? For example, is an ethical source license like the Hippocratic license allowed by the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think enforcement, I don't have a lot of good answers for you on how that is worked out. I think this is kind of a case by case and jurisdiction based. And I think someone on my team who has more familiarity with the kind of legal implications could answer that question. So I can definitely circle back and maybe give you a better answer at another point in time. Um, as far as different kinds of licensing, yeah, I mean, we have a suite of, I would say, about 10 to 15 basic licensings available for you to choose from, but you can also bring your own license and use that for the data sets that are hosted on the platform. We haven't come across any instances of um, licenses that we don't support, but I think as we start to roll out into more uh, different kinds of data sets, that might come up right now. We're primarily working with folks that are using CC0, the Noodle license, MIT, pretty like permissive and open licensing right now. But I think as we start to expand our purview for the kind of data sets that we have on the platform, we'll have to, you know, address some of those concerns.
Let me just make a plea to not simply rely on the OSI approved list of licenses. There's a whole world of other licenses out there for addressing some very specific problems. So I would just hope that you'll leave that open-ended. And that access issue, I would say, is pretty fundamental to making sure that the data you're collecting, especially from outside of dominant cultures, is not exploited. So I'm hoping that this is a situation where you're not aware of the solution, but a solution is in place. That's table stakes.
Got it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Next on the list, Adam, would you like to unmute and yeah.
Yep. Hi. Thanks. That's really interesting. And funny timing because I just found out about the data collective a few days ago, actually, when I was doing some research
Mm,
on Common Voice, which
mm.
I now know is hosted on the data collective. So now I know that. I just had a couple of questions and a comment. So I am interested in, you mentioned you were designing a universal metadata schema, and I'm wondering if you are designing your own or are looking into examples, existing examples, or how other organizations are doing it. And my second question is about how exactly the collective, you said that it's possible for collectives to, how does the collective governance aspect, how is that intended to work in practice? That's super interesting. And I also just wanted to bring your attention to, speaking of the Swiss, there's also something called the Trusted Data Observatory coming out of Switzerland, which is a um, it's not existing yet, but they're trying to build basically like a universal metadata layer uh, that could interact with AI systems and users and various data
Mm.
repositories and act as like kind of a metadata layer. So that might be interesting to you, or it might.
This is the trusted data observatories you said?
Yeah, I put the
Oh,
link in the chat, but it's that's the
oh,
website.
awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, so we are it's work in progress, it's work in flight right now as to kind of understanding what metadata schema works best. We're thinking about it as task-based first. So we have a lot of ASR data sets, and so there's already some conventions around how we should handle metadata for that. The kind of required fields for doing ASR tasks like the actual speech recording, but also the transcription and any kind of metadata around like demographics and things like this. We've looked at Dublin Core as sort of a metadata standard that we can adopt and kind of work off of. And there's still a few other ones that are still in consideration. So it's work that's still in progress right now. And as folks on the team are continuing to develop that, we'll kind of have a better idea of where we'll end up landing for that. Um, yeah, as far as like collective governance of data sets. We don't really have a strong prescription of how that works, but just to kind of offer and say that organizations that sign up to use the platform can be collectives and can have different kinds of permissions and scoped access controls for how they want to manage their data sets on the platform itself. We're also thinking about this with respect to payments. So what does it mean for a data set to be purchased? And then where does that money kind of sit and go into? And how does that then get distributed kind of fairly or in alignment with however a collective wants that money to kind of roll out. And so these are, again, I think kind of open questions and things that we're working through with organizations and with collectives that are using the platform now and are a bit of a kind of case by case basis, but we're using these examples and these kind of case studies, I guess, as drivers for the features that we have on the platform itself. Yeah, I think that's sort of the answer that I would give it in the moment.
Yeah, thanks. That's super interesting. So just to clarify, is the idea that like an organization, um, uh, right? An organization creates an account or however that works, and
Mhm.
then they deal with right. The organization figures out maybe in conversation with you all, but really like the organization is responsible for figuring out how it wants to govern
Yeah,
the data set.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly,
Thank you.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. In some ways, the platform is, just hosting the data, but we also are providing tooling around how you want that to work, what sort of conditional access do you want to provide, all of these sorts of uh, features and quality of life tooling that we think that data sets out in the open just don't have or don't come with. And we're kind of the shell around your data sets to provide just better support for how it shows up on the internet.
Yeah, a question, quick follow-up on that. I guess I'm curious, like what interfacing with the organizations or collectives looks like, even just right now. Like, what does even communication look like? To what extent
Yeah,
is it like there is a steward from that organization that is like one or two people, and they kind of make decisions on the behalf of the rest of everyone involved? Or, yeah, even just from like what those conversations look like, it'd be interesting to hear.
totally. Yeah. It's all different depending on the organization, of course. For example, we have a lot of regional language stewards that we work with that are producing data sets that are hosted on the platform, and a lot of these are really intimate, almost like one-to-one relationships that have been built up over years, especially with Common Voice, and so folks on our team who manage the kind of data tooling and data uploading process know these people very intimately, have been working with them for a long time, and have these real deep and authentic relationships. Um, for other organizations, there's, it's a little bit more like what you described, where there's maybe just one or two people who, are gating partnerships or gating kind of the data of that organization, and we work through them. Um, some of them are researchers and academics who are, for example, I know this one data set around Western Armenian, and this researcher works at a university and is already kind of doing the work and stewarding the language and the recordings and transcriptions with them, and is um, has developed consent with the folks that they're working with, and that then gets transmitted into the data sets that they now have uploaded onto the platform. I think there's just like a many different ways and varieties that people are working together collaboratively in order to make sure that the data sets themselves are being represented as they want to on the platform. And we do our best to be as hands-off as possible and kind of let them drive how they want that relationship to work and how they want it to show up on the platform ultimately.
That's huge and awesome and like very relational, I feel like, which makes sense for when there are, yeah, you're kind of developing it over time, based on these relationships and the different needs of different members or participants. So, but yeah, that's not nothing. That is a type of governance, right? That is a type of decision making and governance process. So that's super cool to hear. Um, all right, Chad, feel free to unmute and ask your question, and then Steve, you can ask your second question.
Hi, Johann. I was just basically taking a look at just like a couple of the languages, like a couple of the data samples, and trying to figure out like what are all the different types of metadata that is collected. Like in terms of when we were talking about metadata, like it'd be kind of cool to be like kind of to have a bit of a walkthrough of what when you upload something to MDC or different types of data sets on MDC, what are the kinds of things that are tracked? Where do you find payment? All of that kind of stuff. And I also had kind of a follow on. Adam and I have been chatting in the chat here a little bit about, he said, how similar is it to the original data sheets for a data set? And then I was also thinking about like what percentage of these data sets are downloadable? What percentage are accessible via API? How much overlap is there? Is there people that opt only to use API access so that they can keep more control over their sets? Or is everything like 100% across sort of both options? So just some sort of general data management questions.
Yeah, I'd love to do a live demo of showing how the uploads work if that's okay. I can do that in a moment. As far as your second question, though, there is no distinction right now between making your data set available via the API or just the web browser. We do have this. If you go to download a data set, yeah, I can show this. Okay, cool. So I want to share my screen again. Let's see if we can go here. So this is one of our largest data sets and most popular. This is Common Voice scripted speech for English. If you click on either download or connect to API, you'll get this pop-up box which asks you to agree to the license, the additional conditions, restrictions, forbidden usage, etc. And by clicking on down, after you agree to all this, you can download the data set directly in your browser, or once you connect with your API, you'll get an API key, and then you can use our REST endpoints or the Python library to download it programmatically in that sort of way. Just to kind of give you a sense of what the uploading a data set looks like, I would click on new submission, and then I can just do like my test data sets. And then on here, you would upload your data set. You have the name for your data set, just a short description, a long description, the task that this data set is for. A lot of these are for ASR, automatic speech recognition, but we have a few other ones. We are pretty like speech and text heavy right now. That's just sort of the space that we're in, but we'll be moving into other kinds of modalities. The locale, the file format, here are the licenses, which we have a handful of that you can kind of go and choose and select. Or if you wanted to give a license URL, you could do that as well. And then we have the different restrictions, forbidden usage, additional information, any other information, intended usage, ethical review, and then contact information for the data set. And then you can toggle whether or not the data set is public or just private for right now. And then what this would do is it would flag someone on our team to go and review your data set, make sure that it is what you say it is. This is a bit of a manual process right now, but we're hoping to kind of automate this soon. But that's sort of the flow that we kind of go through right now to verify that the data sets that are uploaded to the platform are what people say they are. Does that answer your question or kind of give some insight? No. I don't think we're strictly following data sheets for data sets. I think this is pretty inspired by it though. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so under this heading for metadata for English, this is essentially the data sheet for this, which gives you some demographic information based on gender and age, how the data splitting works, some samples from it, other kind of information, recommended post processing, what the fields sort of mean, etc. So kind of giving you kind of what it is that you're getting inside of this data set before you download it.
Steve, did that answer your questions in
Yeah, it
chat?
did answer my question. That's correct. Good,
Cool.
good job there. Thank you.
Pakon, you raised your hand. Feel free to come
Yeah,
on.
I had a call and so I missed I am here late. It's a kind of I don't know. I'm wrestling whether it's like I think it's a question for someone who thinks very deeply about these things and hopefully still interesting, even though I'm missing some context. But I'm like currently wrestling.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like I think the ethic of data that has essentially like it's very scary. Like I'm kind of used to thinking, oh, I don't, it's not worth collecting really fine-grained data that has a high resolution if it's not needed. But if the, I guess I'm currently kind of wrestling with the collection of like intensely de-anonymizing data, like very seemingly very high grade, but it's about actually having a really tight loop of collective gain, benefit, insight. Like as in like just collecting like valence data about attraction or repulsion to ideas or a live stream and having it used to build a map to see who everyone
Hmm.
in the collective can see itself. And I normally would never want to collect this sort of really scary data, but it's about kind of a cycle that it's a rapid cycle time. And I'm just curious if there's any like thing in the ethics of like that around collection and storage of yeah, that's like deals with the like think about the speed of insight for a large I don't know. I don't know. I'm also happy to take a pass on this if it feels too like left field. But
I don't know if I have, yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting provocation. I think the just what comes to mind off the top of my head is Common Voice, for example. So that's one of our large speech data sets. And one of the things that Common Voice, we produce new versions of Common Voice, I would say every 3 months or so. And one of the decisions that was made around Common Voice is to make the splits non-deterministic. So every time Common Voice gets generated, um, where data, uh, where individual data ends up in splits is not the same as in previous generations. I don't know if this is like answering your question directionally, but just kind of like hopefully insightful, um, which in one sense like helps to de-anonymize the folks inside of it and kind of hopefully over time makes it so that you're not overfitting to a certain kind of uh, uh, feature that would normally turn up, but it also makes it a little challenging for reproducibility when it comes to running experiments with the data set. So we see kind of some trade-offs between um, really going hard on de-anonymizing or making it difficult to like back trace and figure out where like an individual might be in a data set, versus some other instances where you might want to have some stability with how your data sets are being generated. So I think there's a little bit in there that I think kind of addresses your questions around the ethics of large data sets and de-anonymization, but I don't have a lot of like um, great insights in the moment to answer that
no,
question.
that's exactly the sort of negotiation that I think I don't have as much experience with. So it's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and what I heard from your question, Patcon, was even just like, are like, what is, how often are the people using the data sets? Are they more like archival data sets, or are they like, or do people come to you being like, this is the data set I want uploaded, and here's like how often we use it and for what, and we want you to have it, but we're going to use it a lot, kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think a large part of some of the users right now are folks who are building speech technologies, just given the fact that that's of the majority of the data sets that we have available on the platform right now. Researchers as well that are doing work, especially on like low resource, indigenous languages, especially in like Mexico and Central America. Um, yeah, it's definitely a resource for folks that are looking to find data sets for languages that are not easily available in large public or easily downloadable data sets. And that's where most of our usage generally comes from.
Nice. Adam, see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. One last question. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about the value return mechanism that you mentioned,
Hmm.
either how it currently works or how it is envisioned to work eventually.
Yeah, for sure. So we're about to roll out one-time payments for data sets. So for folks who have data sets that they want monetary compensation for access to, you can go and make a payment, let's say $100. If someone goes and buys your data set, you would see all of that $100 go to your account. And then we would add an additional 5% processing fee on top of that. And that's how MDC would generates revenue. Um, we are also thinking about subscriptions for data sets, especially ones that continuously make updates to it. So Common Voice is kind of an interesting example. It wouldn't work with Common Voice because Common Voice is by default CC0, but you can imagine thinking of it like a magazine subscription where there's this data set that continuously puts out new editions or new issues every once in a while. And you can have access to that indefinitely just based off of a subscription fee for that. So those are two monetization models that we'll be supporting rather soon on the platform. As of right now, we don't have any of those wired up, but that's where we're moving towards.
Nice. We probably have time for another question. Lee, go for it.
Yeah. As you were talking about that, I mean, something that's been coming up for me in a lot of conversations around like the way that AI is currently run and things like that is the act of like getting people together. So I'm wondering if MDC is thinking at all. I know you mentioned that, all right, I'm uploading my data set. I can say, no, I don't want you, OpenAI, to use my data. But are you thinking of having like a more general like collective decision around that where it's like, hey, we have recommendations, or even we have people that we don't tend to sell these things to, or standards for the different orgs?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a really great question. I'm just thinking about this out loud. I think as the Mozilla Data Collective, I don't know if we have as a collective pin down exactly what that means for us as far as I think we as much as we can want to put the agency in the hands of the data producers around determining how and from whom their data sets can be accessed. I think that's currently where we are sat with that decision and trying to not as a collective as MDC make those calls for data producers. And I think we are maybe with the kinds of data sets that we have right now, and they're pretty open and permissive licensing, haven't had to make any calls around that. We do have some I would say consent mechanisms in place and harm or abuse reduction mechanisms in place as far as rate limiting and making sure that you can only download data sets having gone to the website, agreeing to the terms and licensing and things like that. So we do have this kind of slow consent UI framing around giving access to data sets. And we have had companies ask to get rid of that, or at least just like, can I get like a way to just bypass having to agree to the terms, or if I can agree to the terms in a more blanket kind of check all sorts of way. And we've decided against that a number of times based off of this. So we definitely have some thoughts and feelings and decisions around how we want people to access data kind of writ large. But as far as determining individually who can or can't access the data sets that are on the platform, we kind of leave it up to the data producers themselves to determine that currently. That's a great question, though, and I think something that we definitely want to be thinking of about as we move forward.
Awesome. Any last rapid fire question with a minute or two to spare? Maybe someone who has not asked a question yet? Three, two, one. All right. Well, if anyone has further questions for Johann, we can continue discussion in the Metagov seminar Slack channel as always, and I can pass those along to him and get us all responses. And he just shared his email in chat, so you can also reach him directly. Awesome.
Yeah, you can send an email to that one. As I mentioned, we're spinning out in like the next couple of weeks. So either the first one or the second one should arrive in my inbox at some point. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Definitely happy to follow up.
Cool. And let's unmute, give our speaker a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Johann, for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, take care,
Appreciate
everyone.
you. Yes.
I
And
feel like,
thanks, everyone.
yeah,
Have a great
thanks,
day.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.
Valid. Thanks all. Um, I feel like I've always wished for like a instead of like regular noise canceling, one that just filtered out everything but claps and laughs. Like I feel like if the tech companies truly had our interest, they should want these animal sounds to like come through because they bring us so much joy.
So true. So
They
Totally.
just
true. Don't filter out the claps.
yeah. I feel that probably someone has like a vocal range that's like in the clap range. I don't know. Anyway, perhaps.
Oh, yay. Well, this brings up, I have so many follow-up thoughts on speaking of AI and sound models, like there's this whole study that um shows that people like there can be like screaming confused with screams of anger and stress and screams of joy or pleasure. And models not being able to differentiate. So I would wonder like what Zoom would make of like claps and what might get through if it thinks that claps are like I don't know,
Yeah. Yeah.
gunshots or like,
Oh,
like.
this is making
If
me.
if you want to clap and scream to an AI, you got to try suno.com,
Okay.
Ooh.
the AI music generating thing.
Oh,
So, and
yes.
you can, and it'll maintain very high fidelity. If you wanted to have your voice used in the final product, just put it to 100%. It's all in there. You can make it as AI generated or as you want. You can modulate that.
Like it turns you into.
Wow.
Oh, this is unexpected and very intriguing.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Have a
Thanks.
great day.
Oh,
See you next
if
week.
I